The bright studio lights beamed down on Karoline Leavitt as she sat calmly across from the smug liberal TV host. He had been waiting for this moment, eager to catch her off guard, to twist her words into a viral soundbite that could be used against Trump and his movement. But Karoline knew the game, eh? She had played it before and she never lost. The host, a sharp-suited man in his 40s with perfectly rehearsed outrage, leaned forward, ready to strike. Karoline, let's be honest. Donald Trump is a danger to democracy. His supporters are extremists. And yet here you are defending him. How do you justify that? Karoline didn't flinch. She met his gaze with the same quiet confidence she always carried. That's interesting, she said, tilting her head. Because the last time I checked, democracy means the people get to choose their leader. And yet, every time Trump runs, you and your media allies do everything possible to stop him. If you were so confident that Americans don't want Trump, why not let them decide? The host forced a chuckle, clearly thrown off. Karoline, come on. We both know that Trump has spread dangerous rhetoric. He lies to his followers. He refuses to accept election results. Karoline smirked. Oh, you mean like Hillary Clinton in 2016? Or Stacey Abrams in Georgia? Or every Democrat who spent 4 years calling Trump illegitimate and pushing a fake Russia hoax? Funny how it's only an attack on democracy when Trump fights back. The host's smile faltered. A flicker of frustration crossed his face, but he wasn't giving up yet. He straightened his papers and tried a new approach. Trump's legal troubles speak for themselves. He's been indicted. He's been impeached twice. How can you still support a man facing so many scandals? Karoline leaned forward, eyes locked on him. Let me ask you something. If Trump is such a criminal, why do you need to weaponize the justice system against him? Why are the charges always politically timed? And why do his so-called crimes amount to minor paperwork issues while people like the Bidens, the Clintons, and the corrupt elites walk free? Maybe it's because this isn't about justice. It's about stopping the one man who stands up to all of you. The studio went dead silent. The host blinked, realizing that the segment wasn't going as planned. The control room panicked as producers whispered into earpieces, unsure how to recover. Then, in desperation, the host crossed the line. Karoline, let's not pretend here. Trump supporters, your people, are dangerous. They're racist. They're violent. They're a threat to this country. That was it. Karoline slowly sat back, letting his words hang in the air. The audience, sensing the tension, held their breath. Wow, she finally said. You just insulted millions of hardworking Americans because they refuse to think like you. You sit here in your high-rise studio, protected by security, paid by billionaire elites, and you have the nerve to call the truckers, the farmers, the factory workers, the veterans, dangerous? Because they love their country? Because they dare to question the lies you push every night? You are the real threat to democracy. The host shifted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable. The earpiece in his ear buzzed frantically. His producers were scrambling. Then a voice cut through the tension. Cut to commercial. The screen abruptly faded to black. But the damage was done. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. It exploded online. Millions of views poured in. People from all walks of life. Republicans, independents, even disillusioned Democrats shared it, praising Karoline for standing her ground. And as the network tried to contain the firestorm, an emergency meeting was called behind closed doors. The executives knew the truth. This wasn't just another embarrassing moment. This was a disaster. By the end of the day, the host was gone, fired, erased. Another casualty of the media's failed war against Trump and his movement. And Karoline? She walked out of the studio, unfazed, phone buzzing with messages of support. She had won. Again. As Karoline stepped onto the sidewalk outside the studio, a rush of cool air hit her face. She took a deep breath, her phone vibrating non-stop with messages of praise. Karoline, that was incredible. One text read, Finally, someone put them in their place, said another. She smirked, scrolling through the endless notifications. The clip of her shutting down the host had gone viral in record time, racking up millions of views across social media. Even people who weren't typically political were sharing it, stunned at how easily she dismantled the mainstream media's lies. A group of reporters had gathered outside, cameras ready, eager to get her reaction. They expected her to be rattled, maybe even regretful. Instead, she walked straight toward them, completely unfazed. "Karoline, do you have any comment on what just happened?" one journalist asked, shoving a microphone toward her. She smiled. "Yeah, the truth won. And they couldn't handle it. Do you feel responsible for the host losing his job?" another asked. Karoline raised an eyebrow. "Did I fire him? Or did his own arrogance and dishonesty finally catch up to him? Because from where I'm standing, all I did was speak the truth. Maybe if these networks focused on real journalism instead of pushing their agenda, they wouldn't keep losing their own people." The reporters exchanged nervous glances. They knew she had a point. Inside the studio, chaos had erupted. The executives were furious, shouting at producers, demanding to know how they had lost control of the interview so badly. One of the senior producers rubbed his temples. "We should have never let her on. We thought we could trap her, but she flipped it on us." A younger producer hesitated before speaking. Maybe people are just tired of this. The lies, the spin. Maybe that's why Trump's movement keeps growing." The room went silent. No one dared to admit it out loud, but the truth was clear. Karoline hadn't just exposed one biased host. She had exposed the entire media machine. Meanwhile, back outside, Karoline's car pulled up. As she climbed in, her phone rang. "Karoline!" Trump's unmistakable voice boomed through the speaker. "That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You took him apart." She laughed. "You saw that, huh?" "Saw it? I've already watched it 5 times, Trump chuckled. "The media just can't learn, can they?" "Nope," she said. "And they never will." Trump's tone turned serious. "This is why we fight. Because they want to silence us, erase us. But guess what? They can't. And thanks to you, millions more people just saw that firsthand." She nodded. "And this is just the beginning." Trump laughed again. "That's why I love you, Karoline. Always ready for the next fight. We've got a country to save." As she hung up, she looked out the window, watching the city lights blur past. The movement was bigger than ever. The media was losing its grip. And the truth? The truth was winning. The next morning, the fallout was even worse for the network. Ratings had plummeted overnight. Viewers were furious, calling out the host's arrogance and blatant bias. Sponsors were quietly pulling ads. The media establishment had tried to bury Karoline, but instead they had handed her the biggest victory of her career. She sipped her coffee as she scrolled through the latest headlines. Karoline Leavitt destroys liberal host. Network in crisis. Media's smear campaign backfires. Spectacularly. Trump Alley turns the tables in must-see interview. The video had already been shared by every major conservative voice online. Even people outside of Trump's movement were admitting that Karoline had exposed something deeper, how the media no longer even pretended to be fair. Her phone buzzed again. Another incoming call. This time it was from a familiar name, one of the network's few remaining honest reporters. She answered, curious. "Karoline," the voice on the other end said, lowering his tone. "You just set off a bomb inside this place. The executives are in full panic mode. They're having emergency meetings trying to figure out how to control the damage." Karoline smirked. "Damage control? Maybe they should try telling the truth for once." The reporter sighed. "Some of us have been saying that for years, but they don't listen. You humiliated them and now they're looking for someone to blame." "I'm guessing they won't admit the host did this to himself?" she asked. "Of course not," the reporter said. "They're pretending it was just bad optics. But between you and me, the higher-ups are realizing what we all knew for a long time. People are done with the lies. They don't trust the media anymore. And last night you proved exactly yes. Why?" Karoline leaned back in her chair, satisfied. "Then maybe they should start being journalists again instead of activists," the reporter chuckled. "Wishful thinking, but listen, I wanted you to know some of us in here respect what you did. Not all of us are blind to the truth. She appreciated the sentiment. Then do something about it, she said. Be the voice inside that forces them to change. Or get out while you still can before the whole thing collapses. There was a pause. The reporter sighed. You might be right. Keep fighting, Karoline. You too, she said before hanging up. As she set her phone down, another notification popped up, an invitation from a major conservative network. They wanted her on their primetime show tonight. She smiled. The establishment media had tried to destroy her. Instead, they had made her more powerful than ever, and now she was just getting started. That evening, Karoline arrived at the conservative network studio, ready to capitalize on the moment. The buzz surrounding her takedown of the liberal host hadn't died down. It had only intensified. As she walked through the hallways, staff members and producers greeted her with approving nods. Some even clapped as she passed by. She had become a symbol of what so many Americans were craving, someone unafraid to call out media corruption, someone willing to fight back. She was escorted onto the set, where the host, a longtime conservative powerhouse, greeted her with a broad smile. Karoline, welcome back. I have to ask, did you expect your debate with that guy to explode the way it did? She chuckled. Well, I knew he was going to try to trap me. I just didn't expect him to crash and burn that badly. The host laughed. I think you hit a nerve with a lot of Americans. People are sick of the media calling them dangerous, just because they support Trump or believe in common sense values. And you gave them a voice. Karoline nodded. That's exactly it. The media doesn't just hate Trump. They hate his supporters. They hate everyday Americans who refuse to buy into their lies. And when they call Trump voters dangerous, they're talking about truck drivers, small business owners, factory workers, military veterans, soccer moms, millions of hard-working people who love this country. The host leaned in. And now, that same network is spiraling. We're hearing their ratings took a massive hit. Sponsors are furious and, well, sources say that more shakeups are coming. Karoline smirked. Good. Maybe it's time the media starts learning that when you constantly lie to the American people, eventually they'll stop listening to you. The host grinned. You know, Karoline, after a performance like that, I have to ask, what's next for you? I know you're already a major voice in the movement, but have you thought about something bigger? Maybe a run for office? The audience in the studio clapped at the suggestion. Karoline smiled but didn't answer immediately. She knew the movement needed fighters. She knew that people were tired of weak Republicans who caved under pressure. And if this past week had proven anything, it was that she wasn't afraid to take the fight directly to the media, the establishment, and anyone else who tried to silence. As Karoline stepped out of the studio into the cool night air, her phone buzzed again. Another call, another opportunity. This time the caller ID flashed a familiar name, one of Trump's closest advisors. She picked up immediately. Karoline, the voice on the other end said, I hope you're ready because the boss wants you front and center at the next rally. She grinned. When and where? Next week. A packed stadium. Trump wants you up there speaking before he takes the stage. Your takedown of the media was exactly what people needed to see. He thinks you're one of the strongest voices we've got heading into 2024. She felt a surge of excitement. She had always been loyal to the movement, always willing to fight for the truth. But now she was stepping onto an even bigger stage. I'll be there, she said without hesitation. Good, the advisor replied. Oh, and one more thing. You're getting a lot of attention from donors, grassroots organizers, even some people in D.C. They're asking if you're planning to run for office. Karoline smirked. Seems like everyone wants an answer to that. Tonight. Can you blame them? The advisor laughed. You're exactly what people want. Fearless, sharp, and not afraid to take on the media. Just think about it. She hung up, slipping her phone into her bag. The idea of running for office wasn't new. It had been floating around for a while. But now, after the viral moment, after the flood of support, it felt real. As she walked toward her car, A group of young conservatives waiting outside the studio spotted her. "Karoline," one of them called out. "You destroyed that guy last night." Another chimed in. "We need more people like you fighting for us. Are you running?" She smiled, shaking their hands. "Right now I'm focused on 2024, but trust me, this fight is just getting started." As she drove off into the night, the city lights glowing in her rearview mirror, she knew one thing for certain. Whether it was in the media, on the campaign trail, or in office, she wasn't backing down. The movement was stronger than ever. The media was crumbling, and the American people were finally waking up. Whatever came next, she was ready. The days following her explosive interview were a whirlwind. Conservative media couldn't get enough of her, while the mainstream press scrambled to spin the narrative. The network where she had humiliated the liberal host was in full meltdown mode. Internal leaks revealed panicked emails, emergency strategy meetings, and executives scrambling to save face. But none of it mattered. The damage was done. Karoline's phone rang nonstop. Requests for interviews, invitations to speak at major conservative events, and messages from influential figures within the movement. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What's next? One morning, as she sat in a cafe going over her schedule, another call came through. This time, it was from a high-level political strategist, someone who had worked on successful congressional and gubernatorial campaigns. "Karoline," the strategist said, skipping the pleasantries, "we need to talk. You're not just a media personality anymore. You're a threat to the establishment. And that means one thing. You need to get on the battlefield officially." She stirred her coffee, thinking, "You mean run for office?" "That's exactly what I mean. You've already proven you can take the heat. You speak directly to the people. And after what you just did to the media, you're exactly what voters are looking for. Someone who fights, someone who won't cave to pressure. We need fighters in Washington." She exhaled slowly, staring out the window. She had always been in the fight, always believed in the movement. But stepping into the political arena herself, that was a whole new level. "What seat are we talking about?" she asked, curious. "Congress. We've done the polling, and you're already outperforming career politicians who have been in the game for years. You're young, sharp, and fearless. The Democrats and the weak Republicans will come after you hard, but that's exactly why you'd win." She tapped her fingers on the table, considering it. She had spent years calling out corruption, exposing the media's lies, and defending America First policies. Maybe it was time to do more than just talk about it. "Think about it," the strategist continued. "This movement needs leaders who aren't afraid of the media, the elites, or the establishment. If you're in, we start building the campaign now." She looked down at her phone. Another message from Trump's team, another invite to speak at a rally. The momentum wasn't slowing down, it was only getting stronger. She smiled. "I'll think about it," she said. But deep down, she already knew her answer. This fight was just beginning, and she was ready to take it all the way.